I'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. I'm Aaron Clark from Stewardship Partners. Glad that you could join us today. This is our fifth installment of the Puget Sound Green Infrastructure Summit webinar series. It's going to be an exciting one. I'm always looking forward to the opportunity that we have to talk cross-generational and think about education and the future of this field. And that's what's going to happen here today. So again, Aaron Clark from Stewardship Partners. The Green Infrastructure Summit is proceeding online. We'll have more sessions next week and the week after. I'll fill you in on details of what's coming next at the end of the session. I just wanted to welcome you all. So I'll start here. So on behalf of Stewardship Partners and the Summit Host Committee, I would like to acknowledge that we are all on the traditional land of the first people of this region. Tacoma, where the summit was originally scheduled to be hosted, is the traditional land of the Puyallup tribe, and we honor with gratitude the land itself and the Puyallup tribe, who have been faithful stewards of the land, water, and ancient history of life there since time immemorial. Many of us are attending the summit from other parts of the region, and if you don't currently know on whose traditional land you work and live, I encourage you to find out. Take a moment to acknowledge with gratitude the land where you are and its first people. Thank you. And I want to acknowledge our amazing sponsors for this event. They have had our back since the beginning and have helped get us through the plague, if you will. All of these organizations, companies, foundations have been amazing support for us. And also I want to thank you and also welcome you on behalf of the entire Summit Host Committee. So that's the ECOS, MIG, Nature Conservancy of Washington, Pierce Conservation District, Puyallup Watershed Initiative, the Russell Family Foundation, and WSU Extension, Puyallup specifically. So we're all doing a lot more webinars now than we used to. And in order to do this well, in order to have a successful day, patience is kind of the key word. We're all humans. We're all affected on a human level by the pandemic, by trying to work remotely, by internet connections, by technology. We're all finding a way and making it work. But if something's going wrong with the technology, just give us a little grace, give us a little patience. We'll get there. We'll get there together. And I've said this in every session too. If you see a naked child running through the background of a screen or a dog barks, that's all part of this too. Welcome to our homes. And we're happy to have you here with us. So with that, I'll also just invite all panelists to the competition. Whoever has the most glorious interruption from a family member, could be your dad walking by in his underwear, it could be a dog barking, it could be a kid screaming. Whatever it is, if you have the best one, you win a lapel pin from Stewardship Partners. So this is a webinar hosted on Zoom. Most of you have probably been on a Zoom meeting before of one kind or another. Most of you have also probably participated in a Zoom webinar. The formats are a little different. So as an attendee, you are automatically muted and your camera is automatically off. So we can't see you and we can't hear you, but you can still interact. And it's actually quite an interactive format where as you have questions, type them in as they pop up into the Q&A function. So in the bottom part of your screen in your control panel, there's a little button that says Q&A. That's where you raise your questions. The raising hand feature we won't be using today, so don't bother with that. But the chat function is also helpful if you have a technical question. So use the chat if you have a technical issue. Use Q&A if you have a question for the audience. And it helps to have the specific speaker named in your Q&A sometimes. And oftentimes speakers can answer your questions in type as the session progresses, so we can have some real-time dialogue there on multiple levels. What did I forget? I think that's probably it. So at this point, I'm going to hand it off to Hannah Kett, who has been on this host committee, since the beginning of the summits 5 years ago, and has done amazing work to bring together this panel, as well as help the summit proceed in general. So I'm gonna hand control off to Hannah, and Hannah, take it away.
Good morning. Thanks, Erin. Good morning, everyone. I am Hannah Kett with the Nature Conservancy, and I'm really excited to be here today and be the host committee member for this panel. And this presentation, as its title, is about learning really every age. And over the last number of years at the Green Infrastructure Summit, we have featured discussions and presentations on workforce development and youth engagement. And this includes highlighting the lack of diversity in the environmental field and how we can work together to address this gap. And this conversation and effort continues in and outside the summit. With this current crisis that we're in, it is more urgent and important than ever that we are collaborating together to identify equitable pathways into family wage, green infrastructure, jobs and careers. And so today we are going to hear from a variety of speakers who are active part of this effort, including students, educators, and practitioners in the field. And so I'm really looking forward to hearing from all of them. And so I'm going to turn it over to them. So first up is a pair of speakers, including one who was part of last year's Youth Voices panel, Risa Suho. And Risa is formerly a student at Kent-Meridian High School. While there, Risa, with the help of the Environmental Club and friends from various nonprofit organizations, was able to get approved for a total of $35,000 from King County's Waterworks grant and allocated funding in a student-led effort to incorporate green infrastructure and more environmental education into the community. Currently, she is wrapping up her freshman year at the University of Washington, where she aims to major in microbiology and minor in environmental science. While at UW, Risa hopes to continue her journey in environmental education and learning about the science behind environmental issues. Today, she is joined by Elisha Gill, who is a current student at Kent-Meridian High School and president of the Environmental Club. She is also a Running Start student attending Highline College with plans to pursue an environmental field in the future. So thank you both for joining us, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Hannah. That was probably one of the best entrances I've ever heard about myself. So we'll just kind of wait to get the PowerPoint up. Sweet. So I just first and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone that's here, because despite all of the events and chaos caused by COVID-19, we're all still here. So thank you. As Hannah said before, I'm Risa Suho, and I'm presenting with the wonderful and amazing Elisha Gill, and together we're both Risha, hence the name. All right. Cool. So Hannah pretty much summed up my entire personality and my life, and then some. So currently, currently I'm a project manager intern for Sustainability Ambassadors in World Relief Seattle. And currently I'm 18 years old.
And then my name is Elisha. I'm new to the summit and I'm in Running Start. As Hannah had said, I go to Highline and I'm the president of the Environmental Club. And I'm also a project manager intern with Risa. And my contribution to this project is that I did work on the grant with Risa while the whole thing was going on, but now I'm working on getting the school involved with the rain garden. I'm working with Jake, who is one of our next speakers, and I'm kind of reporting on grants and getting all of that sorted out.
So as Hannah mentioned before, last year I was very lucky to present, and I'm very glad to be back because, yeah. But last year, my main story was about, of course, like youth engagement and environmental sustainability and green infrastructure in general. And I came as a clean water ambassador, still going to Kent-Meridian High School. And it was also at that point where I started my journey in green infrastructure specifically, because at that point I had a really big idea for Kent-Meridian to incorporate a rain garden onto its campus. So at that point, me and Elisha and I applied for the Waterworks grant program, and we weren't really sure where it was going to go. But as Hannah said before, we were very lucky to say that currently we were awarded around 35 grand total from the Waterworks grant program and the King County allocated council funding. So the main purpose of the rain garden was to basically raise awareness for green infrastructure, and also to kind of a form of educating like kids or students more specifically in these kind of topics, because especially in communities like Kent-Meridian and public schools, they usually don't have the funding or the resources to be able to afford that kind of knowledge and give it to the kids, despite its raising importance. So at that point, it was, of course, just my big idea. But at this point, it's more than just like an idea. It's more like a story, a legacy that, of course, is in now currently the great Elisha Gill's capable and wonderful, diligent hands. And now it's currently a legacy more for Kent-Meridian students.
All right, and then what's happening now? More specifically, we're getting the youth involved with sustainability. And by youth, we mean mostly just the Kent-Meridian high school kids, but we do know that the idea of the rain garden is projecting across schools in our Kent School District. And so that happens with the rain garden. And we are also creating a model for younger generations, trying to get them involved with sustainability, knowing that there's something out there, and kind of introducing them to the idea of sustainability. And then we do that through the environmental club. And then there's me. I'm working on the grant and getting the rain garden actualized. And then for what the students are doing, so on the right side, you'll see some design pictures that we had at one of our meetings that we worked with Jake on. And we're trying to, the piece of paper, we had 3 of them. We were kind of designing what we specifically wanted it to look like. And at the end, we'll have them all actualized and kind of have a general idea of what the rain garden will look like. And we're working on requesting advance payments for the grant. So advance payments are usually an advance, and it'll work for half of the year. So we'll have to do that. And then we're getting the community involved as kind of the rain garden goes through the levels of students, then teachers, then district. Everyone's kind of realizing, oh, they're doing a rain garden, and they're trying to get involved because it is exciting and it is something new that kind of the district has never gone through before, where it's student led and it's funded by grant money. And then the big takeaway is that it is a lot of hard work for everyone involved, but it's worth it to inspire future generations that they can do anything no matter what their family background is or their income level is, and that there's hope for our planet.
I just like to point out, Elisha, I think it's still on like the last slide.
Oh, sorry.
You're good. But Elisha is right. This is more than just like a rain garden at this point. While it's more of a story for Kent-Meridian students to tell, it's also, I agree that it's projecting across not just Kent-Meridian in general. I've gotten emails and I've talked to various students from different counties like Snohomish County, where they were kind of inspired to do a similar project. But it dawned upon me the realization that we were very lucky and fortunate to kind of have these resources there. And it's much harder for other students to kind of replicate the same thing. But I I do also acknowledge that it was also worth it to be able to inspire and be able to have other kids, or not other kids, other students be willing to take initiative, because there are other like Risas and Elishas out there waiting for an opportunity to do the same thing, to make this similar difference. And in that same line, the Rain Garden also kind of creates a model for younger generations to follow. If two high schoolers like me and Elisha were able to do this much, well, not alone, granted, we had a lot of amazing people and a lot of great resources that helped us along the way. But imagine what could a younger student who was already well informed, who had people to guide them, to that already was aware of this kind of knowledge and resources, what could they accomplish by the time that they were also our age?
So as Risa said, it kind of inspires students. More specifically, it kind of tells them that this thing is possible, doing projects is possible, having the community involved is possible, because before this project started, I never would have thought that, you know, this is something that we could do. It's kind of just like a dream, just because we didn't have the resources, or I wasn't the kind of person that would involve the community because I didn't have those kind of skills. So I hope that this project, and I think it does, inspire others to lead and know that this is possible.
I think the last point I want to also make is, last year, to this day, one of the most frequent questions I usually get asked is, what can we do as, well, we as in like people who are older, maybe professionals, or people who are kind of educators that want to engage with with students and with like young adults. Well, I always would tell them, you definitely go to public high schools. If there are many young, talented, diligent kids out there, if they were given the opportunity, they could definitely go above and beyond anyone's expectations. And all it takes is just a little bit of inspiration and a lot of guidance. Thank you for listening.
And then we do have a question slide, but we're going to wait until the next presenter.
Thank you, Elisha and Risa. That was great. Really appreciate you sharing your work and for all the work that you do. So next up, we are going to hear from Jake Harris with Stone Soup Gardens. And as a note, after Jake presents, we will take a short break to answer some of the questions populated in the Q&A box. So if you do questions for Risa and Elisha or Jake, please be sure to submit them. So Jake Harris has enjoyed many pursuits in life as an educator, a community organizer, activist, and a general contractor. A focus of his life pursuit is the application of whole systems design and permaculture principles. Jake founded Stone Soup Gardens because he loves getting to make community connections to beautiful solutions that address issues of climate change, peak oil, declining wildlife habitat, watershed pollution, and reconnecting people to food. Jake is a Rainwise contractor and has been with the program since the beginning over a decade ago. Beyond Rainwise, he has had success in collaborating on projects throughout the region that combine GSI understanding with food access. He is currently serving on the board of the Green Infrastructure Partnership, or GRIP, and is thrilled to return to the Green Infrastructure Summit. He looks forward to seeing all of you again in person. I'll turn it over to Jake.
Thank you, Hannah. Yeah, and thank you everyone for joining us today on this beautiful sunny day to be staring at screens. It's really wonderful. And thank you again to all the summit organizers, Aaron and Hannah and Brent and everybody who's done the Herculean task of switching all of this to an online format. So yeah, I'm overjoyed to be here today speaking about this, and something that Risa just said was really registering with me. Imagine students of every age having the access and having the invitation to take ownership. It was kind of registers with me and is kind of a motivating passion for our work. So as Hannah was saying, Stone Soup Gardens, I am a landscaper, simply a landscaper, but I have a social purpose, value-based business that we try and do so much more than just put a shovel in the dirt. So I want to share a little bit more about our role with the Kent-Meridian High School, and I also want to share some of the other projects that we're doing in the hopes that they will give pathways for future success or inspiration for what's possible out there. Because we're doing a number of educational design builds in the GSI and food access world. Let's see, I am controlling the screen. I believe I am. There we go. So to start with, oh, I am not winning on the distractions from behind, but distractions from my own fingers. Okay, to start with, yeah, I think that where we are today, as Hannah was saying, we've been doing rain gardens and cisterns and GSI and doing permaculture-based design, helping clients and communities to take control of food and water and looking at habitat destruction, all of these things. How do we change our interaction with the world right outside our front door? So for me, this is my understanding that we have a valuable set of skills, a very unique, specific set of skills. We understand the human's interaction with water, soil, plants, and plastic, piping underground as well as above ground. And we believe in sharing these whole system design tools with everyone we can. And we're collaborating with multi-stakeholder communities to achieve these goals. And why? Because it is foundational to the ongoing health of our watershed, is kind of my motivator for why we're doing what we're doing. And there we go. I want to start with, as I was saying, I want to start with elementary school level, middle school, high school, young adults, and then adults, learners of every age, as we were saying. So one of the first, when I originally applied to be a part of this panel, I originally was going to be talking about Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary School. This was a partnership I engaged with last year. Martin Luther King Elementary School is a Seattle public school in South Seattle. And you can see this wonderful photo of all the different collaborators. You know, just one little rain garden is just a hole in the ground to some, but it takes a whole team of people behind it to make it happen. And this was a partnership primarily between Seattle Public Schools, Rainwise, Islandwood, ourselves, and a really dedicated teacher, Kelly, at Martin Luther King Elementary School. And what we were able to do there was engage student class in a design process. And I think it's just often that we look at, oh, a rain garden at a school as being designed by outside of the school by a landscape architecture firm. But in this case, we were able to do some of the preliminary work, but actually bring it in and work with the students to talk about what shape do they want? How do they use this space? Have them answer the questions about what was important to them for having a rain garden outside. They had been working with Islandwood. They had been working with their teacher to develop understanding of rain gardens so that when we came in, it was helping to make the decisions and together and go out. They had done the infiltration test before we came in. And then through a series of classes, we worked with them to figure out their favorite plants for the rain garden and design the space. And then we were able to install this rain garden over the summer and have it as a back to school big ribbon cutting event in the fall. And this was a really exciting space. I think one of the things that I want to reflect from this that I found really important is we really focused, both myself and the teachers and the folks from Islandwood really focused on being a designer and introducing that concept to students who don't think of themselves as designers, but we kept looking at ways that, hey, you're already a designer. Have you put plants in the ground before? Have you thought about your own room? Now we're talking about making a place outside. So getting this access to this concept at an early age that we can impact and improve our spaces, I think is really critical. Next, I want to talk about Paradise parking plots, which has been a wonderful example for both our region and the nation as far as how to approach green stormwater infrastructure in combination with food justice, in combination with how to better humanity. This is, I'm going to assume a lot of folks on this call have heard of this project before, have visited this site. Our involvement has been an ongoing collaborator with all the fabulous people who are helping to make this happen. This is really a seed planted by World Relief, Seattle, and Tamina Martelli. But our involvement was to work on the original design and the installation of the cisterns. But then sustainability ambassadors and World Relief had this concept of this ambassador program, so that not only would the students who were helping to design and install this garden get to help learn from that, but that they would also help to teach others. And this was a really instrumental to the spread of this garden. So we engaged with students in a design with the Nature Conservancy for the rain garden, which was going to be the first rain garden for the city of Kent. And it became quite a large project. You can see a photo of the rain garden there in the center getting planted out last fall. And this was a really a fabulous process. We worked with, first we went out with youth group members from the church that where Paradise Parking Plots is housed to Mill Creek Middle School and did presentations on rain gardens and Paradise and what it meant. And from there, we got middle school students and high school students to come to a design charrette for a rain garden and worked with them on a similar process to talk through the plants and talk through, hey, how do we figure out how much water goes into this hole in the ground, and how do we figure out how to manage that water and what is needed, and went through a whole process there. And now this rain garden exists. I think one of the things during the design review for this, I felt some of the students came to us and said, hey, you really actually listened to us for our plant choices. And it was a great feeling to have that feedback directly, because we really did take the time to figure out what in the different groups designs, what people wanted to have, what kind of plants people wanted to have, what resonated with plants from a lot of the folks who were involved in this, either their first generation or second generation immigrants, and what plants grow here that also grew, you know, like mulberries, for instance, that can grow here that also grow in Southeast Asia, and that connection that wouldn't be realized unless we had students leading the design. And I'm excited that the ambassador program continues, and Elisha and Risa are engaged with that. I'm advancing a slide. Great. Elisha and Risa spoke to Kent-Meridian High School. I want to, if we were all together, oh goodness, I just can't have a soft click on the fingers here. But going back, the slides are not cooperating with me. What I want to do, if we were in a group setting, I would ask for a round of applause for Risa and Elisha. So I'll do that now. If we can do a silent round of applause. I think it's remarkable what's happened. One thing that they did not mention is the Waterworks grant that they applied for. This is the first time it's been given to high school students. So this is a monumental first. And I was met Risa. My goodness, this is not working with the slides. I apologize. I met Risa at a Rainwise event, and then saw her speak at the summit last year. So this is a foundational element for us for pushing learning at every age, is this summit. And I was just taken with her leadership and taken with the vision that she was putting forward, and we quickly got together again and met up with the environmental group there. And I think both Elisha and Risa already were speaking to some of what's happening there. We had started a design process that then got put on the wayside because of COVID and with all the changes happening, but we're picking back up on that. I think one of the things I'll say too that's really exciting about this project is it's also, I've been, part of my role is as a consultant here is helping to get this approved through the permit office at the city of Kent. And the city of Kent is really excited about this. This is a new permitting process for the city to allow for cisterns and rain gardens. And so, at any rate, it's been really a lot of excitement from the city of Kent for this project as well. So I also just want to speak briefly to Dirt Corps and the idea of teaching the teachers. A number of years ago now, it was 2016 when this photo was taken, but this was a project that we did with Dirt Corps. They have a job training program, and they asked us to come and do a cistern and rain garden educational install. So we did some class time as well as some field time to help to teach people how to do site assessment and to actually construct a rain garden and a cistern. So this is part of the larger piece of teaching at every age. This is young adults, which is such a broad category from 18 to 40, I guess. Sometimes can be categorized as a young adult, but either way, this is a really important community that Dirt Corps has been continuing to generate and create. And I feel honored to have been involved early on to help the tools there. And I will also mention our work with the Tilth Alliance, their Soil and Water Stewards program. Last year, we worked with a number of their projects, helping to do a rain garden, a cistern install at a community farm in Bellevue, doing a rain garden install at the South King County Tool Library. That was a collaborative educational process as well, so that folks were learning and so that they can be ambassadors for GSI and food sovereignty. Learning doesn't just happen in classrooms, it also happens in networking events. I want to put out a shout out to the Green Infrastructure Partnership, which I've been on the steering committee for 5 years with some folks like Aaron snuggling with his wonderful son there. Anywho, if you're not already involved, please look up GRIP. We have been taking a hiatus due to COVID, but we will be back online or back in reality soon, I hope. But this is a monthly networking event for leaders in the region to come together and talk about furthering green stormwater infrastructure. So really great opportunity for those of you who are not already involved. Yeah, so I just feel, personally, I feel overjoyed to be working with so many great collaborators in all these different multi-stakeholder projects and actually actualization, like Elisha was saying, actualizing these projects, making them happen. And I think my final thought would be we have to keep pushing to mainstream our work. This knowledge that everyone has is crucial to get out into the school, into everyday conversations. Our water and our life depend on it. So keep sharing knowledge, keep sharing challenges, sharing successes, keep collaborating, and let's do this.
Thanks, Jake. Appreciate it. So like I mentioned, we're going to take a brief presentation break just for some Q&A, and Erin just sharing a reminder of how to submit Q&As. And we have one in there that I will ask Risa and Elisha and anybody else who'd like to answer. What is the best way to make resources, financial, educational, etc., known and available to students, particularly thinking youth of color and underserved communities?
Rad. So just shout out to Jake. I was actually like clapping when you said let's do this, so just know that you're not alone. So that's a great question, whoever posted that. Well, it really depends on the area, because I think Sustainability Ambassadors does it really well, where they do their best to kind of search or connect with various organizations that are already ingrained and know their community. So if certain communities already kind of have those organizations there, then it's really good to build connections with those. So it's a lot easier to integrate yourself into that community. But if you're starting from like plain old scratch, like nobody knows what a rain garden is, they're like green infrastructure. I've never even held one of those. Well, I would say start at public schools. A lot of when I go to like my brother, or when I go to like younger students, I always ask them, wow, you're so smart, how do you like know all this? And they're like, oh, I learned it in school. And I was like, nice. So that's just my 2 cents.
And then I would like to add that through like public schools, it's very important to go to the people that the students trust or the teachers trust, because that way it'll make like kind of a spider web effect. And that like a lot of students, it's vulnerable, like immigrants and kind of students like that, they're vulnerable because their parents don't really speak that much English, or they haven't gone to college. So I feel like that's very important to get to somebody that they trust. So.
Any of the other speakers like to add? Otherwise, we can move on.
Sure. I mean, with the response to the funding, how to get funding, I think a lot of the successes with some of the projects I was talking about is that they're potlucks of funding, that bringing more people to the table. I think it sometimes can be challenging to think, oh, we're going to fund this just from this one grant. And it's really about reaching out to the broader community and saying, hey, we have this great idea. We have this great thing happening here. And these people here need resources, and these people over here have resources, or how can we connect more groups into the conversation? So I think that's a strong success from why Paradise has been so successful, is the potluck of funding and organizations that have gotten involved there. So yeah, I think that's part of it, is reaching out to as many different organizations to be a part of the vision.
Thanks, Jake. Another question for you all. Did you have the opportunity to present to your school board?
Me personally, I don't know.
Okay, so how it worked is the project went through the levels until the school district, and then they kind of presented it at their meeting, and it was kind of, should we approve it, should we not approve it? So we didn't present it, but the idea was there, and they just had to approve and not approve.
Thank you. Okay, I think that is it for the question box. We can continue with our presentations. And up next is Jesse Williams, and I'll wait for Aaron to, there we go. Jesse is a community member, father, and civil engineer who sees green stormwater infrastructure as a tool to improve our communities and aquatic resources. He is also an experienced water resources engineer with more than 17 years of experience that includes leading design teams for green stormwater retrofits, underground utilities, roads, parks, and urban building sites. Turn over to Jesse.
Great. I think I'm clicking to accept the screen. Let's see if this is working. Naturally, I would be the first person here that's got some technical difficulties. Aaron, I am trying to take control and advance the slides. You have a suggestion?
Yeah, it looks like it's not, some reason it's not working. You're not gaining control. I'm happy to advance the slides for you if that would be.
Sure. Yeah, in just a second. Well, so I do want to start well, I'll just say that if I knew that I was going to be working from home for 3 months, I wouldn't have accepted this brand new laptop that has a camera that's mostly focused on my neck and chin. So we'll just get that out of the way. But I do want to say that I'm really honored to be a part of this panel. You know, it's a really great group of people. I'm really passionate about this mission. I also have to acknowledge that, you know, that that I'm coming to this as a person who grew up with privilege and with with pretty much unlimited opportunity. So I am not an expert on equity and on community. I'm just going to share some experiences, really in the spirit of kind of giving you a menu of things that you might consider for your work. And Steve Colony, I did see your question there. I appreciate that one quite a bit. I am actually going to be talking about inspection today, but in general, I'm going to definitely focus on how we might be able to bring in some maybe non-traditional candidates into this work. Aaron, next slide, please. Great. Yeah, that's me and my 4 kids, and they have no volume control. I did let them know, 42 minutes ago that I was going to be presenting to people. So that was a long time ago. We'll see what happens. Next slide, please. Great. So as I kind of mentioned, my training is as a civil engineer. And I think the picture on the left there kind of says it all. The bad suit and the glasses. I'm good at math. I'm good at, some of the technical things. And while my heart's there, I'm definitely still learning how to be a part of the community and how to work with some different folks for more equitable outcomes. So I'm coming to you all today as a learner, and yeah, that's me. Next slide, please. Great. So the very first training that I got to be a part of presenting was to designers and to plan reviewers, and so those trainings were really spearheaded by Chris Webb and Curtis Hinman and a number of other folks. So unfortunately, I can't give you all hugs today because we're not there, but I appreciate you. Next slide, please. Right. So I'm going to talk about 4 different case studies today. The first 2 happen to deal with inspection, and then we'll talk about training for operations and maintenance, and then last but not least, training that I had a chance to give to a middle school architectural club. Next slide, please. Great. So that the first 2 are going to be for inspection staff, and the first one is on construction inspection. Next slide, please. So I can't actually read the slide at all myself, so we're we'll just go for it here. So I had the chance to work with with construction inspectors for the city and county of Honolulu, and so the staff there were pretty well seasoned inspectors. So I wasn't teaching them how to inspect construction, but I was giving them some of the nuances and the lessons learned are in terms of what are some of the things that they might like to look for or want to watch for when they're watching green infrastructure construction. And so if you're a municipality who's seeing more green infrastructure constructed, then this type of training might be helpful to help your inspectors know what to look for. Next slide, please. Right. And then the second training that I did was in the city and county there, they, as a part of their stormwater permit, they go check that private property owners are properly maintaining their stormwater facilities. And so anticipating more green stormwater facilities being built, we did a training for these post-construction inspectors to give them some more tools as they're doing annual inspection on green stormwater facilities. Next slide, please. Great. So in this case, again, this was a group of people who knew how to do inspection, but they might not have had a background in green infrastructure. So in both of these trainings, we went out to the field and we did some practice inspections, which I thought was really helpful. And then also what we did is we created a field manual that was essentially like a 1 or 2 page, almost like a cheat sheet for each different green infrastructure type of facility or best management practice, BMP. I think the picture here might be showing permeable pavement, but effectively for each different type of BMP, we give a short description in terms of what is it and how is it supposed to work. And then we gave a little table of key performance indicators. And so if you're someone who's inspecting this thing, you're not really sure what it is or what's it supposed to do, you've got a little cheat sheet. You can run back to your truck and check this out real quick and then say, oh, looks to me like you're not cleaning your pervious pavement, or I see here that you should be cleaning the overflow structure in your bioretention swale. Those types of things. Next slide, please. Great. Yeah. So in this case, as I mentioned, we did a couple practice activities in the field, and I think that's really key. I think if there's too much classroom, and especially inspectors, or it's really got to be a lot of activities and a lot of hands-on, and not too much talking. Next slide, please. Right. And one thing I'll mention is that as Jake alluded to, we're promoting green infrastructure because we think that it's good for the environment and for people, and because it's got a lot of other co-benefits or more benefits for people versus some of our traditional gray infrastructure. So I really suggest that if you're doing a training, if you're preparing inspectors, maintenance staff, those folks in those positions, I would try to really connect the green infrastructure back to why does this matter to them and to their community. And so in this picture, you'll see some outrigger canoes that are parked next to the I believe it's pronounced Alawai Canal. And so it's just this beautiful body of water, but it's frankly not really good to swim in because of the pollution. And so why are we doing green infrastructure there? Why should this be getting built right and maintained? Because we would really like to restore the water quality to that canal and not be able and be able to actually swim there. Next slide, please. Right. And then locally in the Puget Sound, I'd say stereotypically people who like to do construction, who might like to do maintenance, they might be fishermen, they might have a family that likes to swim or to use the water. So I think that tying our work back to the beneficial uses and back to how this benefits them and how does this benefit our community, I think might help make things more meaningful. Next slide, please. Great. The third training that I had a chance to give was down in Los Angeles. And so the city recognizes that as they build more green infrastructure, they're going to need more maintenance staff to operate and to maintain that green infrastructure. So they're thinking proactively and trying to get ahead of that need with some training. Next slide, please. So this particular program was a partnership between the city and the Los Angeles Trade Tech College. And so we were working with the city to prepare the curriculum. And then the curriculum ultimately will be delivered by the Trade Tech College. So really cool partnership. Next slide, please. Right. So in this case, we don't know exactly who is going to apply to be a part of this training. It could be landscape professionals that are very adept at landscape maintenance and would be very skilled at doing this work, but might just need some of the technical background in terms of what is green infrastructure, what's different about green infrastructure versus maybe just your standard landscaping. And then it was an opportunity to really teach people, some of the terminology and the language around what are these different BMPs and the different lingo. Next slide, please. Right. So I think a part of the reason why I wanted to talk about these trainings is that in general, at least as far as engineers go, we've got a shortage of talent. The industry has not done a great job of attracting new populations, and a lot of folks in engineering have traditionally looked a lot like me, and so we recognize a need, both a desire as well as a need to be significantly more inclusive and to recruit a better workforce. And so I think that the green infrastructure inspection, green infrastructure operations and maintenance, asset management, these are all ways that I think I'd like to see us trying to recruit more people into engineering and into construction. And my coworker here that's on my left in the photo, your right, she does not have an engineering background. She has more of a biological background, and so she's been a part of a third-party construction inspection program in the city and county of Honolulu. And so, that's given us the chance to recognize her talent and her skill set. And so we're working on bringing her into more engineering work. And it's giving her a non-traditional pathway into the engineering world, other than just getting a bachelor's of engineering. Next, great. And then last but not least, my daughter and I actually got to give a presentation to a middle school club. And so we were talking about green infrastructure. Next slide, please. And so as far as I know, as Jake mentioned, there are already currently programs out there for students to learn about green infrastructure, to learn about polluted stormwater runoff, and some of those types of things. The part that I wanted to toss out there is that we follow that up by doing an inspection of the bioretention swale or planter that's at the school, and then we were able to do a maintenance activity on a problem that we found. And so a part of what I was trying to do was to explain that there's not only jobs doing green infrastructure design and construction, but there's also inspection, there's maintenance, and there's asset management. So I think as schools will hopefully build more green infrastructure, then I'd like to see that get incorporated into the curriculum. And I think, so actually next slide. Right, so a couple things I want to summarize here. One is that especially the engineers like me have a lot of lingo and a lot of terminology, And so I think we want to be really fair to try to define that. Also, engineers like to talk and like to lecture, and we really want more of that. We want more short activities, and we want doing, and not just a lot of lecture. Then in terms of activities, I highly recommend teams of 2. You know, I think if it's one person, they sometimes struggle, and teams of 3, sometimes someone can just watch. Teams of 2 seems to me to be highly productive. And then last but not least, I mentioned field visits, but you know, they can be kind of loud, and yes, it takes extra effort to find a spot and to coordinate logistics. But if you can do a field visit safely, I highly recommend it. Last slide, please. Great. So that's my email, and I would love to get some feedback. If you're aware of more resources that I've missed or whatever, please let me know. And I want to talk, Steve Colony, your question about inspectors. I think what I would say is that some people have a background in green infrastructure. Some people have a background in inspection. And if people are missing one or the other, then let's talk as a community about how we can either provide training or provide mentorship to do that. Another way to do that might be to have people with some of those skills now commit to mentoring others. That way, you as a public agency get the service that you want, and are assured that people are going to succeed. But if you can also have that team bring along new people and mentor them, then that might be the best of both worlds. So I'm going to close with that, and we'll see if people have more questions or comments.
Thanks, Jesse.
Yeah.
We will have some time for questions after this last group of presenters. And again, just as a reminder, you can submit your questions and we'll get to them after this last amazing group. So you can, if you want to go, Erin, to the next slide, just so they are on the first slide. There we go. So this, for our final presentation, we have 3 speakers from the Urban Environmental Education Master's Education Program at Antioch University. Sue Byers currently serves as the director of the Urban Environmental Education Program at Antioch University, Seattle. She directs graduate program, academic oversight, and student management. She leads the design and delivers near and long-term strategic plans, leads the institutional interface with Antioch University, Seattle, institutional strategic partners, and supervises faculty and staff. Prior to joining Antioch University in 2014, she served as Chief Academic Officer at the College Success Foundation, where she led the replication effort of the foundation programs in Washington State and the District of Columbia, and provided oversight for the creation and delivery of college preparation and bachelor degree attainment supports for low-income and underserved youth. Sue began her career in education at Seattle Public Schools, where she directed college access and readiness programs for middle and high school students, and served as special project director in support of the superintendent. Sue will be joined by Kevin Debs, who was born and raised in Sacramento, California, and he worked as a preschool teacher before earning his lower elementary Montessori teaching credential and teaching 1st through 4th grade at Mustard Seed School for Homeless Children. In 2013, he moved to Seattle, where he taught preschool at Seattle Children's and University of Washington. He currently works as the partnerships manager for Tiny Trees, an outdoor preschool with 9 locations around King County. His consulting workshops center around redefining the outdoors for Black, Indigenous people of color, or BIPOC, and approaching outdoor education with an anti-racism lens. He attained his bachelor's at the Evergreen State College and his master's in education at Antioch University. They will also be joined by Rashina Fountain, who has been published in Trail Posse, Huffington Post, Embrace Race, Mountaineer Magazine, Zora Magazine, Thrive Global, South Seattle Emerald, Austin Weekly News, and more. She is a past Walker Communications Editorial Fellow with the National Audubon Society, and she has worked with the Seattle Audubon Society, the Urban Food Systems Department of Seattle Parks and Recreation, Program Impact at Islandwood, and the Environmental Leadership Program. She attained her bachelor's in rhetoric with an emphasis on creative writing from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and her master's in education in urban environmental education from Antioch University, Seattle. And she is a first-year MFA creative writing prose student and pre-doctoral instructor at the University of Washington. So welcome to all of you.
Thank you. Sue, you're on mute.
I clicked it and it didn't unmute me. Very good. Great to see everyone today. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here, and I'm so grateful for Rashina and Cav to be a part of this presentation, and they're going to take over most of it. As Hannah shared, we're the Urban Environmental Ed graduate program at Antioch University, Seattle. And this first group of lovely people are young people. The first summer of our program, this was our first cohort. And Jake, you had a picture of Selena in your presentation, and she's right there on our first slide. She was an alum of our very first cohort. And as was shared, Rashina and Cav are both alum. Rashina graduated in 2017 from our graduate program, and Cav in 2018. And so I'm so happy to have them here. And let's see if the arrows will work for me. They may not, Erin.
So you may need to try clicking the screen first and then using the arrows. It looks like you're in control now.
All right.
Maybe slightly delayed, but it should work.
Why don't I try right here?
Worked.
All right, great. So a little bit about our graduate program. These are five of our pictures of five of our cohorts, and our graduate program was launched in 2015. And we are so excited that we've had 96% graduation rate, and we've had about 50 graduate students that have graduated now. 95% are employed in the field, and they're covering, as you saw with Rashina and Cav, they are teaching at higher ed level. They are leading nonprofits or in management positions in nonprofits. They are also in environmental field, urban planning. We have some filmmakers, and there's some people that are also working in policy and in government. And so we're really pleased that this program has really launched amazing leaders in the field, and they're making a huge difference. Our program has a focus on diversity, equity, and social justice, along with environmental leadership, and social justice is at the core of our study and our practice. We use a number of innovative approaches to navigate the intersection of social justice and the social ecological well-being in our cities. We do this by working directly with our community. We immerse our students within the community. We bring in community leaders so that we can understand the needs and the directions that our community leaders and community members are taking to address issues and to create solutions for challenges that are being faced. Our program outcomes include leadership, content mastery, cultural competence and social justice, environmental education, and community engagement. And so I am going to pass this on to Rashina so that we might be able to talk a little more about the program. Rashina?
Yes, so I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me. Can we get that last slide back?
I'm going to try.
Okay, well, yes, I can focus. Thank you. Yeah, so creating a microcosm of urban communities for learning and practice. So what's cool about the program and what I experience is the diversity of it right away. And so the faculty are diverse, the student body were people that looked like me. And so that was different, you know, having taken some environmental science classes at the University of Illinois before coming. And I think that shift was really important and one of the rewarding parts of the program. Also, right away, the program throws you right into the community of Seattle. So I personally worked for Seattle Parks and Recreation and Islandwood, and part of my work for Seattle Parks and Recreation was talking to community leaders, like talking to leaders in the church in Central District, or talking to members of the International District, and really interviewing them and like getting to know what their aspect of the community was. And so yeah, so that's one of the most powerful things about the experience as well. Next slide. Also reimagining the role of an educator. So like Sue said, was that we're all involved in education in some way, whether that's informal or formal education. I am myself a writer, but I see myself as an educator as well, even if I'm writing or even if I'm teaching at the university. So we've been facilitators, translators, interpreters, catalysts in the community. I've, during the program, went to Rainier Beach High School and did the block club there, and kind of took what I was learning in the program and did a workshop at Rainier Beach. And so going into the community to educate. Yeah. And so interactive experiential learning, as I said, we were very immersed in the community. One of my favorite classes there is the urban ecology course. And so as the earlier speaker, Jake, was talking about swales. And so we stepped outside of the classroom to learn about those. And we actually went and wasn't a textbook. We went and we walked through the cities. When we first got to Seattle, we visited every, I wouldn't say every neighborhood, but a lot of the neighborhoods. Like we went to Central District and learned about the history of Central District and learned about some of the infrastructure. We went to buildings downtown that were sustainable buildings, and like, so yeah, so like going into communities like both for a cultural and kind of historical grounding, but also then looking at the city's infrastructure, just looking at trees planting, what trees are planted in certain areas, what goes behind that. And yeah, so very, very interactive and experiential learning.
Thanks, Rashina. Cav?
Yeah. So I, you know, to piggyback off of that really quick, I know that we just had a lot of opportunities to actually be in the community and be in Seattle and be in spaces where we were actually going to be able to make a difference. And one of the many things that I appreciate about the program is that you build connections and you build networks and you build a sense of community that you are able to kind of draw back on and continue even after the program was done. One of the things that we had to do was a legacy project, which is basically tantamount to a thesis. And running parallel to that was a practicum. It was 30 weeks, it was paid, and it was at a community organization. I was fortunate enough to continue my work at Tiny Tree. So I had been working at Tiny Trees as a program supervisor a couple of years, not even a couple of years, I think a year before I joined the program. And so I was able to use my job as my practicum. So that was very lucky for me. But one of the things that I really appreciated about it is that when you are in school, it really does help inform the work that you're doing in the program, at work. And so I was able to really think about and be really reflective, right, about my personal journey and what had brought me to be in this space. The questions that I'd asked, particularly, personally around BIPOC and the narratives around them being outside and who gets to do that. And so I was able to, kind of like Rashina was saying, you do get to talk to so many people and you interview people. So I was able to talk to our founder and CEO. I was able to talk to our admissions coordinator at the time. I was able to talk, I talked to my parents, right? Just about my personal journey, and all of that really, really helped inform my legacy project. And so combining that research and that field-based practice, it just really helps you grow, and it really helps you develop really good solutions that make sense, and that are actionable, things that you can actually put into work. I know a lot of times we like to sit in theory, and theory is great, but theory is way high up, right? And to be able to take that theory and put it on the ground with the proper reflection is really what the program not only kind of pushed us to do, but you also realize that it works. And when you are putting that thought into it, it helps you not only strengthen your perspective, but it helps you to see perspectives from other people and other groups. And I think personally, I believe that, if we're going to make the changes that we need to make in our world, we have to see other people's perspectives. You don't have to agree with them, but you have to be able to look and think about where somebody else may be coming from. And this program was definitely something that was really able to kind of push that forward. So I really appreciated that. Can we go to the next? Oh, it's already there. Excellent. So we had some community-driven green infrastructure projects that we were able to work with. So one of them was the Beacon Hill air pollution study. That one was one that I got to do, and it was a whole lot of fun because we really were helping that organization with a lot of issues that they were having around air pollution. So the Beacon Hill neighborhood has planes flying over it. I think it was like every 11 seconds or something really, really seemingly insane. But I think when you're there long enough, you just learn to kind of not pay attention to it. But their studies were showing that students' test scores were suffering because they weren't getting enough sleep. And they were having a hard time focusing in school. And so there were a lot of solutions that we were able to partner with that coalition. One of them was actually naming the project. And I think the biggest thing that I learned from that is that just because you come up with an idea doesn't mean that people are going to use it. And I think that was a very important lesson for me to learn, especially when engaging with communities, right? It's a good fact to remember that, like, you can come up with ideas, but at the end of the day, it's what's best for the people who live there. So, other people were able to work on sustainability and climate change policy with the city of Seattle, particularly with the Department of Sustainability and Environmental Justice, Puget Sound SAGE, East African Community Services. And then there was a lot of education programming, which where personally a lot of my stuff fell under. So there's the King County Wastewater Division. Islandwood has urban schools programs where they talk about stormwater runoff. Seattle Public Schools, there were some charter schools. Tiny Trees was a part of that. Woohoo! And working with Seattle Parks. So there were a lot of opportunities for every person who was in the cohort really get their hands dirty, right? I mean, metaphorically and literally, and really try to work to bring about a lot of change. And I think that sometimes when we see change or we think of change, we think of it as big and sweeping and foundational and monumental, and that's great. And I think that there should be change on that level. And we really have to invest locally. We have to invest where we are. We have to invest in the places that we actually live, and not just be a resident, but be an actual community member. And this program was really, really able to put that into view and put that into focus so that when you leave, that's something that's at the forefront of your brain. At least it was at the forefront of my brain when I left. So yeah, I definitely, I think we all kind of got a really, really good experience that way. I just realized that a good amount of these slides have my face in them. But the good thing, one of the things that we used to say in our cohort was nothing about us without us is for us. And again, just kind of going back to that idea of community, we definitely wanted to make sure that everything that we were doing was informed by the people that we were working with or the people that we were partnering with. So just coming in and saying, listen, what do you need? How do you want to do this? How will this work best for you? And co-work and co-create, because honestly, that's the only way to do it. And if we're not doing it that way, then it's not authentic, and it's not going to do everything that it could. So yeah, Sheena, do you want to add anything onto that?
Yeah, I second everything you said. Yeah, so as I mentioned, I'm not in the environmental field traditionally, and I have chosen education where I have carried over my lens. So right now I'm teaching an English course that I've developed at the University of Washington on on the environment. So writing on the environment. And so cool thing about that is that I have a diverse group of students in my class. I have engineers, I have people who are going to be public health. And so what I do is my class is developed around a lot of the concepts that I learned in the UEE program. It's developed around environmental narratives. It's developed around acknowledging indigenous lands and just like thinking about the environment in the ways that we did in the UEE program. And that's foundational on social justice, foundational on understanding community and understanding community involvement in projects or in any decisions that is going to be made in collaborative, like with community. And so I'm not in the field, but I definitely have carried that lens into writing and teaching, and it's been cool to expose a wide range of students to concepts that maybe I didn't learn until I got to grad school, or maybe a new way of thinking about the environment that I didn't think about when I was a freshman in college. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And, I am also going to be teaching at North Seattle College here in the summer. And the class that I'm teaching is Children in Nature in the Early Childhood Education Department. And a lot of what I'm going to be able to do is based on my legacy project. And the good thing about that project is that I've been fortunate enough to be able to use it to provide professional development around the city and start consulting and traveling and doing some really, really fun stuff. And I think being able to work with college students, particularly at the community college level, will be really exciting because, again, I just hope to present some new outlooks and perspectives for people, and hopefully they leave understanding that number one, there are a lot of perspectives out there, and number two, that the environment is everything, right? we tend to pigeonhole environmental studies into, you know, things like sustainability, and that is fantastic. I mean, those things are aspects that we need to talk about, and we have to be careful not to divorce ourselves as humans and as people from nature and the idea of the environment, because it's literally everywhere we are and we can't escape that. So yeah, it's pretty exciting stuff.
And just one more thing to add, I heard a lot about like recruitment in terms of the environmental field and how to attract diverse people to certain subjects. And I think one thing to point out is the SCREAM 2.0 report, the challenge, and just in terms of being willing to be a bridge and accepting new perspectives and new ways of thinking and thinking about retention would be a good way. So in terms of attracting, that's one aspect, but also if being a bridge and being willing to meet that person halfway or meet that person or welcome the new way of thinking that is incredibly needed in this time that we have some very pressing issues that need to be solved, and it won't be solved without collaboration and welcoming of a different way of thinking.
Thank you, Rashina and Cav. I just appreciate your leadership that you're doing in the community and the leadership that you exhibited also in the program. As Cav and Rashina have spoken about, the practicum provides real-time, real-life experiences and opportunities, and it's not just a casual participation with an organization, but it is a 9-month commitment that students are working, and they're bringing their own leadership experience with the organization as they're working together within the organization to serve community and to live the community voice. And so I would like to say as we close that any organizations that representatives from organizations that are at the summit today or in our webinar, we welcome organizations to serve as a practicum partner and to benefit from these amazing graduate students that are with us. And so if you're interested in serving as a partner, please reach out to me. And then also, if there's anyone who is interested in graduate school themselves or know of someone that might be interested and be a good fit for our program, please, they're welcome to reach out to any of the three of us to learn more about the program and go on to our website and learn more about the program. But as Rashina and Cav have both also spoken about, we really have taken the Green 2.0 report very seriously and are developing and encouraging the growth of individuals that are diverse and they have diverse perspectives, as well as honoring the diverse perspectives of our community and really trying to speak to the workforce needs within not only our Seattle area, but within the US as well. Thank you so very much for allowing us to share.
Thank you, Sue, Rashina, and Kevin. Really appreciate it. You're sharing your stories and your expertise and these opportunities. We should have a couple minutes before we close. Jesse, I'm wondering if you could share about the question that was asked in the chat around bringing people on who may not have an engineering background into engineering field. If you could share.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm not sure what was visible in the chat window, but I work for Jacobs, which is a big engineering firm, and we've been able to recruit, I guess, a number of people who they wanted to join us to work on green infrastructure and to solve problems. And so they've maybe had a science background or a different technical background, but not an engineering background. And so clearly a person's experience does not limit their potential. And I would say one challenge that we've recognized in our working through is that that if most of my coworkers have a similar background, then it, at least in my case, it's maybe easy to forget what other people don't know or what other people haven't been taught in school. And so if I'm asking somebody, hey, could you create this project schedule for me? Or could you do this work in AutoCAD or something? I really need to say, hey, by the way, do you know what that is? Do you can I give you any help? Do you need any coaching or that type of thing? So I really need to make sure that I've given them the opportunity to ask questions. And ideally they should do the same, that if I ask them to do something, they should have the freedom to say, I've actually never done that before. Remember, I didn't go to engineering school. Oh, that's right. Okay. And, so then it's a chance for us to do a little teaching. So I think that's very solvable with good communication. But I think if there's not that communication, people can be set up to fail.
Thanks, Jesse. I also wanted, because one of the things that was sort of a theme through all of your presentations was talking about field work and getting out into public spaces and working with people and working in the field. And obviously right now that is a little less feasible. So I just wanted to hear from some of you, if you wanted to share a little bit about how that's been adjusted during this time, or what are some other opportunities to make that accessible during a time when we have limited opportunities to get in the field.
I can take a stab at that if that's okay. I think one of the things that we've been doing at Tiny Trees, so we have a team called the RDTO team, which is redefining the outdoors. And we have been putting on events and activities that run on weekends so that families who don't have access to Tiny Trees can get outside, have some fun, learn about the area that they live in. And so a lot of that, like you said before, was, being outside, being in the field. And now that that's not a possibility, our shift has really turned to mutual aid. And that is just reaching out to organizations, or to, a lot of our community partners and people that we've been working with in the past, and saying, like, what do you need? How can we make that a reality for you right now? And what logistics do we need to put in place to make sure that that can happen safely, right? So a lot of remote learning is happening right now, which, is not ideal considering, we're an outdoor preschool. But one thing that we've been able to do is, take into account the fact that not everybody has access to a computer, and they don't have access to internet, right? So one thing that we've been trying to do is put together these little kits that we can send out to families. Not very big, maybe 3 or 4 things in them, like a magnifying glass, bug catcher, we are working on a scavenger hunt in multiple languages, and being able to put those in the mail and send them out to people. Now, again, logistically, it's going to take some time, and it's going to take a lot of planning. And I think it's something that, time is something we have right now. So we're able to sit down and have some conversations about how to do that as best as possible, and then evaluate, right? What worked, what didn't work, what can we do differently? And then, just keeping those conversations happening. Really checking in with people and being like, where are y'all at? What are you doing? How can we best serve right now? What are you hearing from the members of your community about what the biggest needs are right now, or what the biggest barriers are right now? Because some of them might be the same as they were before, but I also imagine that there will be things that are new and different. So asking those questions and actually listening to the answers too, right? Not just waiting for, absorbing and then doing what you want, but actually, doing things that are going to work for the people that you're partnering with. So that's kind of where we've been going with it so far.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'll jump in too. Yeah, field work and yeah, I mean, our organization is all about hands-on learning and hands-on experiences for folks to understand what's going on. So it's I'm almost, yeah, I'll use the word. It's kind of a daunting challenge for us to change to everything being online. Working specifically Kent-Meridian High School, we're preparing. It's much easier to walk in and look at the space together with the students and to be talking about the space and going, oh, okay, well, look, we could put a tree here. So we're developing different, different designs and different protocols for how we're going to engage, and also like just being able to see people and understand what they're understanding and not understanding is part of the challenge with this work. I think it's especially with the students, some of them are going to be quieter and are not going to raise their hand or not engage in this platform in the same way. So there's a fear on my end that they're going to miss some of the information that they want to have. So we're trying to get that. I mean, another thing I didn't mention, but another education that we're engaging with is with partnership with South Seattle College and Seattle Public Utilities that just started happening, is a Rainwise incubator program that I'm going to be the subject matter expert for. And that was supposed to be a hands-on training, going out and touring field sites and seeing rain gardens and cisterns hands-on and doing hands-on training with plumbing and all of this. And now we're trying to figure out how to put all of that into an online format, and also having the same questions that Cav was just bringing up about, well, not everybody who is going to be interested in this has a computer or reliable Wi-Fi, and how do we make this accessible? And how do we make this actually engaging to people who want to be doing outside field work as a career and don't like sitting in front of computers? How do we merge those? So there's a number of challenges. I think they're overcomable, but it's just having to rewire our brains in a moment's notice is our collective challenge.
Thanks, Jake. Is there any other like to share, Sue?
Yeah, I just would share really briefly. Thank you so much. Sometimes we have to shift what we were planning to do to respond to the very needs. And another example, we have a current student who is partnering. His practicum is with Oxbow Farms, and they're partnering with Frank Wagner Elementary. And other community organizations are doing some partnering with the community as well as the school. And during this time of stay at home and the school is closed and the children are learning remotely, the garden that they developed is still in need. But even greater so, there are some needs within the community. And so they've come together with other community partners and our graduate student that's involved in this, and serving the community in terms of getting access to food and other things that might be needed. And so that's also how we can be a benefit as we are supporting our community and helping to facilitate change and support. So I just wanted to offer that as a suggestion.
Thanks, Sue. Thank you. We are at time, so I just wanted to thank all of the speakers and really appreciated and valued this conversation, and that we could bring this conversation to the summit. And so, yes, Jake is doing rounds of applause. If you cannot see him, silent rounds of applause, and I'm sure we would be doing that in person. So thank you all, and I'll turn it over to Aaron.
Thank you all. This was a fantastic session. It's great to see your faces. I would love to give you big hugs in person, but and high fives and whatever. It's great to see you all, and very, very grateful for your participation and contributions and hard work in this space and with some of these sticky questions. They clearly will define whether or not this field succeeds or fails. We haven't answered them all, but I'm seeing a lot of lot of opportunity to move forward and make progress. So as we wrap up for this week's series of Green Infrastructure Summit sessions, I just want to remind you that we have more sessions next week. On Monday, we have our incentives session. I'll actually be presenting in that one myself as well, but we'll be talking about large scale, small scale incentives for voluntary green infrastructure, as well as incentives for developers, and we'll be really running the gamut on that. But getting a green infrastructure into the ground does not often happen without some kind of nudge. So we'll be talking about that, and we'll be putting a fine point, I think, on how to do that in a way that centers equity and access and environmental justice as well. So please tune in for that. That'll be at 1 o'clock on Monday. And just so everybody knows, this session will be on the Stewardship Partners YouTube channel. There's a link to that on the Summit webpage, 12,000raingardens.org/summit. But you can find that. It'll probably be up maybe as early as tonight or as late as Monday. But all those sessions that have been completed so far are up there now. So again, a huge thanks to Hannah, to each of our speakers, and to everybody who tuned in today. Really appreciate your helping move this work forward. Have a great weekend, everybody. Enjoy the weather. Get outside. Be well.